Moral Revolution community, welcome back to our podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. Let's talk about it.
Hey, welcome back to the Let's Talk About It podcast. Today, we have some exciting things to talk about. We are helping you up your dating game.
Yes, we are.
So today, I'm joined by the Allie of Allerton.
Yes, hello.
Who is a person extraordinaire. We just decided that's the best way to describe her.
Yeah, I was like, who am I? Yeah. It's a deep question.
Get very introspective right at the beginning of the podcast.
Right.
Where do I fit?
I know.
But she's done stuff with our Date Well program for the ladies. She's got her own YouTube channel. She has excellent dating advice. So we wanted to pull her in today to talk about, from a guy's and girl's perspective, how do we make the move?
It's a good topic. I'm excited.
Yeah, so it's exciting. So Allie, why do you think then people aren't actually taking the move? We're going to talk about how to and give you some practicals, but first, why aren't people?
I know. I don't know if this is like common everywhere, but I feel like, especially in the church today, I hear a lot of people, especially these single ladies, who are like, where are these guys? Why is nobody asking me out? And I think that could begin to make you even feel like, is something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, why am I not being asked out? Like, why is nobody making the move? And I think there's probably a lot of reasons that people are not making the move, right? I think there's a lot of fear associated with dating, and there's often a lot of high stakes. Like, it often feels like if I share how I'm feeling about this person, if I express any sort of interest, then I'm supposed to get on one knee tomorrow and propose. And you're just like, that is just not that. How is that possible? I'm like sitting
That
in this
escalates real quickly.
Really quickly, right? And,
Yeah.
and a lot of pressure, even maybe if the move has been made, you're sitting there at the coffee date and you're trying to figure out if you want to marry this person. And you're like, I don't even know your mom's name. I don't know where you're from. Like, what in the world? How do you make that kind of decision? So I think there's kind of just been in general sort of this pressure or high stakes that in order to ask somebody out, you have to know that you're going to marry this person.
Yes.
Or be able to step into a serious relationship. And I think it's to our detriment. I think we kind of need to shift that scenario and that stereotype or that perspective and just take the pressure off of that. I think there's a lot of ways we can go about that, but I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we don't see people making a move.
I 1,000% agree. What mindset would you walk into there? What's your self-talk then to overcome that, to go, okay, sometimes I take it a little too seriously. I get ahead of myself too far. How do you mentally talk yourself off that cliff?
Yeah. Well, I will say that was Allie. Like when I was
Allie.
Yeah,
okay.
that was me.
Yeah.
Like when I was beginning to date Elijah, I had to talk myself out of that because it felt almost like innate for my mind to go to that place of like, oh, this could be forever, which I think are very normal thoughts to have.
Yeah.
And it's not bad or anything, but I had to take that pressure off. And I think for myself, that looked like, okay, God, I need to invite you into this space because it feels really vulnerable to share my heart with somebody and then not know. And so I had to kind of come to this place where I knew that sharing my heart with somebody was not, I'm committing my life to you. It was kind of like an internal talk for me. And then kind of going, well, okay, so then that means that I'm just being able to express my feelings with this person. It's not a forever. And I get to go, okay, so then I'm going to be okay because I know that I'm awesome. I'm a great catch. Like if it doesn't work out with this person, that's okay. There's going to be somebody else. Yeah. So I had to just like take that pressure off of myself. It wasn't pressure that anyone else was putting me on. I think it was just kind of what I had learned or experienced within the culture I grew up in.
Yeah, you have that the internal world, and it kind of underneath it all is rejection. You're like, how do I put myself out there? How do I share something that's valuable to me and it not get potentially just tossed to the side or kind of overexposed?
Right, totally.
I think one thing kind of in there as I was listening to you talk is also like setting goals. Like, what's your goal for the relationship?
Yeah.
Because if you have a goal that's at level 8, you're going to walk in with like level 8 energy and expectations.
Oh yeah.
We're going, hey, maybe on the first date, you enjoy expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Your goal is to like, hey, I want to express myself with the opposite sex. I want to see if I have fun with the other person, if they're a good conversationalist.
Yeah.
And kind of setting some expectations that are first date appropriate.
Totally. You have to go back to like, okay, like who is this person? Do I even enjoy them? Can they carry on a conversation? Like, can I have fun with them? Do they have a sense of humor?
Yeah.
Like, do they laugh at my jokes? Like things that are just real basic, as if you're just getting to know a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the ultimate goal for a first date is like, let's get to know each other.
Right.
Or if you're like, well, we already know each other, and now we're trying to see if it's more.
Yeah.
You know? We got some other stuff that we'll talk about in a minute for there of like, how do you make that move? Is it worth it? What if I already know? What if I think I already know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's super great stuff.
Yeah. I'm curious though, for you, what would you say are some of the reasons you think that people don't make the move? I think for like, I guess gave maybe a general perspective, but I'm curious even for a guy's perspective.
Yeah. I think there's a series of things. I think rejection's a big thing, the fear of rejection. I think ignorance is one. I don't say ignorance like you're stupid or like, how dare you? But it's just like literally, no one's ever taught me how to do this. Like I'm trying to figure it out.
That is such a good point.
I was talking to one of my friends the other day about how our dads were invested, present, and aware, but they never crossed the line, never crossed their mind to mention like, this is how you would ask a girl out.
Right. This is how you date.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, you just kind of figure it out. And so I think sometimes you walking in, for guys, we want to feel that we're capable and that we're qualified and stuff.
Yes.
And so we walk in and going, oh, this hits a core concern or need of mine to know that I have what it takes. But right now I don't even have a grid to know if it went like, the only measuring stick I have is if we get a second date and a third and a fourth and we ultimately get married.
Right.
So it in the same way I would imagine for girls, you have that pressure of like, I want to feel valuable that they did ask me out, that they did want a second date. Guys are also sometimes trying to answer the question of I have what it takes.
Yeah.
And therefore we're measuring a date as successful of if it leads to marriage versus that was a good first date. Like we had a good time. I was able to show up as myself. I was able to relax. And this is some of the mindsets that I'm trying to incorporate rather than just the fears. But usually like, oh, it was a successful date. I shared myself honestly. I was able to walk through it. I made some jokes. I said some stuff that I will not say again. But you're kind of able to enjoy yourself in the moment and you're able to authentically appreciate the person in front of you.
Yeah. That's
So,
great.
but the ignorance, I think, is a part, which is why, unashamed plug, date well.
Yes.
We have a date well program for both men and women. The
Killer.
links are below. But it just helps you. Let's get some practical examples. And we'll give you some examples here in a little bit. But just like, here's how you would approach and walk through it.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had those tools under my belt before I stepped into any sort of dating relationship. I think that so often, like, don't you think someone should teach you how to date? Like we're taught so many things in life, but like, why is dating when your heart and somebody else's heart is on the table? Why is that not something we talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me go to my file of what I've been told.
Yeah.
I've seen these couple movies, and so I'm pulling out the Joey Tribbiani, like, how you doing?
Right.
Which I tried on my wife at one point, and she literally responded, fine, thank you. And you? And I was like, oh, it felt so
How
bad.
you doing?
So bad.
Yeah, life is not quite like a movie.
Yeah. I think a lot of times another thing for guys is it's the high stakes that we walk into it, but I don't know if guys know what we should be looking forward to. So I think sometimes guys stall out because there's like, well, there's a lot of options, or like there's a lot of pretty girls.
Wow.
What should I should feel a certain level of something towards a girl so I can take the step. And I'm afraid a lot of times I've seen Christian guys wait until, instead of the threshold being right here of like, okay, I'm interested, a first date threshold.
Yeah.
They like build it up in their head until it gets to here. And so they've waited 6 months and been interested in this girl. And now they've created the girl in her head rather than getting to know the girl as a human.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes guys will stall out because they don't know what the feeling should be to do it, or they wait till they know they're interested to then make the move.
Mm-hmm.
Or sadly, they're just distracted by too many other things in life.
Yeah. Totally.
Whether it's video games, their job, their career, which aren't bad things. Like, know what you want in the season and pursue it. if you're paused on life, if you're filling your life with things that you know that you can accomplish, that are filling your life, then I would challenge you not to pursue a woman, but to challenge yourself to pursue things that are hard to you to do. Mm-hmm. I've had, sorry, this is a bit of a ramble.
No, this is amazing.
But I've seen, I was even talking to one of our teammates the other day where sometimes guys feel like they're trying to prove their masculinity or prove their authenticness in taking risks to pursue a woman. So they come off real aggressive.
Yeah.
Not because they're not, they mean to be aggressive, but they're trying to overcome something inside of them.
Yeah.
And they're using this experience to prove something in themselves, which just comes off very aggressive for the girl. So it's like, okay, let's find a goal, pursue the goal, and get used to like pursuing and doing hard things.
Right. When you don't have a track record, it's hard to feel confident and capable of doing something. And I think kind of the same, I mean, obviously for dating as well, you have no grid.
Yep.
And so that first time you do something, it might feel super scary. You're like, oh, okay, is this how it's supposed to go? But I would say you kind of mentioned this, but as a guy, like I don't know. And sometimes because I don't know, that I'm feeling maybe not capable. And so then I become overly this way or underly that way.
Yeah.
And there's something that is so attractive about somebody that can own their internal world and be honest about it. So coming to a girl or guy in this case and saying, man, I've never done this before, but I would be so interested in getting to know you more.
Yes.
Maybe we could do this or this or this.
Yeah.
Give some options.
Yeah.
Like have a plan.
Right.
But being honest, like I've never gone out on a date. I mean, you don't have to maybe say that in particular, but like this is new to me and I'm interested in trying this. I'm interested in getting to know you is way better than just trying to be like, yeah, I have no feelings about this. I just want to take
I'm super cool.
Yeah.
Or I'm overly funny and talking to everybody because I'm too nervous to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like 6th grade. Like,
maybe I've done that before.
Right.
That's so good though. But yeah, just admitting, going, hey, I'm a little nervous today. And for the other person, it kind of lowers the anxiety for them too, because maybe they're like, oh, I'm nervous too.
Right.
Or if they're not nervous, they'd be like, oh, I can have some compassion and sympathy for you. Not that I'm babying you or mothering you or fathering you, but just going, oh, cool. Okay. We can chill. Like this can be a little lower.
Right.
I love that. Okay. One other thing that I've noticed maybe with some girls, in a minute, I would love to hear your thoughts on girls asking guys out.
Oh yes. That's a juicy question.
So juicy. But I've noticed with, sometimes girls are waiting for a guy to ask them out or a specific guy to ask them out. Mm-hmm. So that if guy B over here comes to ask them out, they're like, I'm waiting on him. I'm waiting on him. So like, it feels like they're not taking steps or not moving because they feel either they're very interested in this guy instead, or they're waiting on this guy to make the move.
Yeah.
And so
it's the waiting game.
Yeah. Which is sad for everybody.
Right.
Because girls feel paralyzed and they can't have ownership of it. But then the guy who did take the risk and made the move kind of got swatted away like a fly because she's zoned in on somebody else.
Yeah.
And please do not use this excuse. I've had this happen to me, and many guys that I've talked to is like, I'm just in a season of singleness.
Right.
Until Johnny asked me.
And then I was ready to go.
Turns out that single ended next week. So, wow.
Wow, that lasted long.
Yeah. But, just going, hey, like, thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the risk. I'm not really interested, but I so appreciate it. That's a better response than, it's just me and Jesus right now.
Yeah, making up something that's not true to try to make someone feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just owning it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Okay, so maybe we skip it and come back to, like, how would you ask somebody out? But do you think girls should ask out guys since we're here?
I know. I love this question. And I think it's because we've thought for a long time that that's a little bit controversial for a girl to ask a guy out. What do you mean? Isn't it the guy's job to do that? And I think for myself, I thought the same thing. I remember, I'll give a little bit of backstory if that's okay.
Yeah, tell the story.
I remember when...
Bring us in.
Right. When Elijah and I were dating, who's now my husband, when we were friends, I began to have feelings for him. Oh. And I knew, I was like, okay, well, he's my friend. Like, how do I broach this conversation? Or do I just wait and wait and wait for him to say something? I knew there had possibly been interest. But I had this narrative in the back of my mind that it's not my job to initiate that conversation. it's the guy's job. I'm supposed to just stand here and look nice and be kind and stay your friend and just wait for you to come to and decide that you are interested or not interested, or maybe
I'm the woman of your dreams.
Right. Or maybe you never do. And then what? I just wasted all that time. And Johnny, a really great guy, asked me out. I couldn't even see the possibility in him because I'm so caught up in this other thing over here.
Yeah.
So it took me a very long time until finally I just went, oh, I'm actually capable and powerful of this. And I'll say this though, I think that the reason why sometimes it feels a little counterintuitive, or I don't know what the right word would be, but for a girl to ask a guy out is because we have an innate need to be pursued. We want to be thought, like we want someone to think we are the most amazing thing that they have ever seen, and we want to feel pursued, and like this person would drop everything and would take the risk to pursue us, right? But I think also guys also,
and I would add in guys have that in reverse. They have that like that thing inside it goes, I want to pursue beauty. I want to see and cultivate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's God's perfect design, right?
Yeah.
Totally. So exactly. I think that guys have that innate desire in them as well. So I think that's why sometimes it feels maybe a little awkward. And then also just kind of how we've seen stories play out in society, in the movies that we've watched. Isn't it the guy's job to initiate that conversation? So I had that narrative playing in the back of my mind. I was like, I can't be that girl so forward and aggressive. I'm like, no.
I don't want to be the alpha male. I want you to be the alpha male.
Exactly. I don't want to be dominating. I don't want to, I don't want to come across that way. And so long story short, eventually I came to and was like, I actually think I need to respect my heart and I need to respect my feelings that I'm having, because
that's a great way to put it.
I keep seeing, we're in school together every single day. Yeah. We're in the same friend group, like really good friends. Like every day after school, we're all hanging out on the weekends. And every time I see him, I'm thinking about the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts that I'm having about him, but I'm not confronting them.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to push them off like they're not there, until eventually I was like, I think I need to respect the thought or the feelings that I'm having, and I need to tell him how I'm feeling, because we already had connection in the first place. So it felt like even as a friend, I need to let you know where I'm at. And so I was the one to initiate that conversation and let him know how I felt. But I'll say I left the ball in his court.
Yeah.
So I initiated the conversation. I let him know how I was feeling. And then I just was like, well, we'll see. We'll see how he responds. And it was great and amazing. And he was the one to go, oh, okay, I would love to pursue you. I can't right now. This is my timeline. And it gave me, oh, okay, he is going to pursue. He is the pursuer in this. But it was totally okay for me to initiate that conversation.
Yeah.
It was my own personal story. But I feel like also too, if you're a girl, this guy isn't your friend, you're just interested in getting to know him better, I think it's appropriate to ask him, hey, you want to grab a coffee? But I would almost like let that be. I would initiate one thing and see if he initiates back. I wouldn't be the one to continually pursue him. That makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even from a guy's perspective, I think that there's a difference. One of the things we talk about in Date Well, subtle plug, is the difference between initiation and pursuit.
Yeah.
That sometimes I consider it like a game of tag. Sometimes you tag the person first, but then it's like, are you going to chase after me?
Yeah,
and
that's a great perspective.
Sometimes guys are great with picking up things, and sometimes we're slower than girls to realize what's going on in the situation, both in dating and in marriage. And sometimes, like, my wife is like, hey, this is happening. I'm like, I don't know. And then
totally.
A few weeks later, I was like, so you were right.
That gut instinct.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
So sometimes guys just need a little, like, little nudge, or like, yeah, hey, I'm here. I'm like, hey, this would be good. And so I do love the idea. I mean, in an ideal world, that the guy would see it first and be the one to like take the risk first and put himself out there. And so, but I think, I like sometimes girls just, they may need a little nudge, or you may need a little, like a long pat on the arm, just to register for the guy to go, oh, because I mean, maybe he's just in his own world. Maybe he has a different timeline of something that's going on in his world. Maybe he thinks you're out of his league. Maybe he's just has always seen you as a friend, and it hasn't crossed
Ever crossed his
boxes.
mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you see that, it's kind of like sliding it across the table to go, hey,
Yeah.
this would go well for you. I had a girl ask me out once. Well, actually a couple times, different girls. Once she used I wrote an article, how to ask a girl out, and I like walked through it, which I'll explain in a minute, but she used it to ask me out. And I was like, why does this feel so
Familiar?
good and normal? Yeah. And I was like, she used my article. I was like, wow, that was good. But another time she just said, like, somebody just said, hey, if you ever ask me out, it would go well for you. And that was her just little like, I'm just going to leave this here. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And it's just like little stuff like that. I think girls don't have to be like, I'm going to take you out. Like you said earlier, I want to pick you up at 7:00.
Right.
You know, like that's not what we're doing, but it's just going, hey, this would go well. Like here's an area of interest, or, hey, I think I'm open to exploring more than friends with you.
Mm-hmm.
And just leaving it there and letting the guy go, hey, are you going to pick up the ball? Like, are you going to pick it up and do something with it? Or are you going to leave it there?
Right. Totally.
In which case, guys, if that happens to you, most likely you probably don't have an answer right in the moment.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like, for many reasons. It could feel like I've never thought about it before. It could be like I was planning on it. Now I feel the moment stolen. It could be a shock to your masculine like identities.
Yeah,
to go,
I've been curious. Like, how does it make a guy feel?
I don't know everybody. This is an honest Abram response. I was like, I was kind of a bit bummed that I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, I also didn't make the move fast enough, so that's on you, Abram.
Right.
But yeah, like, so I think even that, when I have to self-talk and walk through the awareness of going, why did that sting? I'm like, it's just because it wasn't the ideal story that I wish it would have happened.
Right.
Because I'm a romantic. But another friend said it this way: we often think of your romantic story is how you met and first started, but there's so much more to your story.
It's just the beginning.
I know so many great couples that have been married for 15 years who have great stories that once you know them for a long time to go, the woman goes, oh yeah, actually I nudged him first, or like I told him to ask me out, or I asked him out straight. And I was like, oh, there's so much more to your story than the first incident.
So much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has so much more time to pursue you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would also say, like, if you nudge him a couple times and he's not pursuing you, he doesn't want to pursue you.
Right.
Like, sorry, gently, he's just not that into you.
Just not very interested.
Yeah.
That's okay. There'll be another one. There's a lot of fish in the sea.
Just because he's not doesn't mean it's even about you. It could be he's got something else on his plate right now. He's dealing with this. He's thinking about this. There's 1,000 other reasons. But give yourself permission to feel it, to know, okay, this isn't going to happen, so that you can move on and find another great guy.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
So how would you ask a girl out? Well, no,
Oh,
sorry.
yes. Well, how would you?
If we could give some language to you. Again, I wrote a blog about this because in my experience, I got to there and went, I have no idea what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so I started asking people and then just culminated the answers and simplified it because I felt it needed to be out there. And it's actually been translated into a few different languages. That's not a brag for me. That's hey, if you don't know, More Revolution has other languages.
That's incredible.
We've got Portuguese, we got Spanish, we got French, we got German.
Wow.
They are killing it.
Awesome.
People all around the world. I'm so proud of it. It's one of the happiest things that we do for me. So if you don't know that, you should check them out. But just some language. Like if you don't know the person or you don't know them very well, I would just say, hey, start with like a nice compliment. I'm just going, don't walk up and be like, can I take you out? I'm like, just awkward and weird.
Right.
Like just approach them, maybe some small talk. Oh, that's so good. Like, oh, it's nice. You ask a few questions and then go, hey, I'd love to get to know you more, like one-on-one sometime. Maybe you see them out at a party. Maybe you see them somewhere and you only have a few minutes. Just going, oh, hey, I really like, hey, could I get to know you a little bit better? Can I just take you out for a cup of coffee? I'd love to get to know you better.
Yeah.
Low stakes. The goal of the date, the goal of the time together is just to get to know each other, to figure out, do you like her? I mean, like, do you have fun together? Do they love Jesus? Are you physically attracted to her? Like, those are your first 3 questions your goal is to answer. Not like, what would my name look like with his last name? Would he be a good dad or would she be a good mom? Like,
that's great.
What kind of vacations could we go on? It's like, let's just start with like, hey, do we enjoy each other as humans?
Totally.
Dating is the discovery of each other, of maybe something could happen.
That's great. I would even back up a little bit and even say, like, I think there's a lot of people, well, where do I meet that person?
Yes.
Like, where do I meet somebody that I even am interested in asking out? And I would say, are you in places where you are able to meet somebody that you would want to be doing life with? Like, are you in spaces that it's a place that you feel passionate about, that you could probably meet somebody that also feels passionate about that same thing?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we live in this world that feels so isolated, right? We're like in all these different streams and everything's online, and that online dating has become like this hot topic, and it's a whole new world out there, right? But being in spaces where you can find somebody that you can almost organically create conversation initially.
Yeah.
Like you're saying before, you're like, hey, can I go on a date? But kind of give it a few reps, like ask them a few questions. Like if you see them again, ask them more questions. Remember what they said the previous time and follow up on it. Some of those like very practical first steps to even acknowledging like, oh, I think I might be interested in spending intentional time with this person. It's kind of having those initial conversations in the first place. Where are you from? What are you up to? What do you do?
I also like to start with like a general compliment, not like but just like find something that you appreciate about the person besides you're really pretty. I mean, yeah, I'm sure every girl loves to hear that, but maybe not the first opening line.
Totally.
You're really pretty.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks.
White shrew, awkward. But just coming in,
You too.
you're like, oh, I really dig your kicks. Like you're like, you've got really nice style, you know, or like, hey, I saw the way that you handled that situation over there. That was really cool. Like it onboards you into a conversation,
right?
Like in a soft way of going, hey, I see something I value and appreciate about you.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what you want to be communicating is not what I can get from you. Like, oh, I see and value and appreciate you. And so I want to know more about that and see. Ultimately, I tell guys, I'm like, if you don't feel like you can add to or give value to the other person, I'm like, then I wouldn't be going that direction.
That's a really great point.
As men, we want to lend our strengths to the person.
Yeah.
Like to our families, to our children, to our jobs. And so if she's rocking your life and you're like, I don't really have anything going on in my life, I'm like, cool, no problem. Like, let's just step back and like, let's start rocking your life first so that you live a whole life and then you're able to bring more stuff to the table.
That's really great. We were just talking about that in the little date well live that we did with the girls. Yeah. About even knowing like, how do you know if you're even ready to date? Yeah. And I love that. That's exactly what you said is like, well, am I ready to leave this person better off than I found them? Am I ready to serve and love somebody to benefit their life? Is it coming from a very selfless place, not a selfish place of me trying to fill a void or trying to cope with some area of my life? But am I in a space in my life where I really can give and add to somebody's life and they can be an addition and add to mine?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
That's so good.
Okay, we were talking though about some of our practicals of how to ask them out. Yeah, maybe.
Also, I would throw in, have a plan ahead of time. If she says yes, I'm like, hey, I can take you out sometime.
So good.
Because otherwise you're like, she's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. What are you thinking? And you're like,
girls love a plan.
Yeah. And depending upon how well you know her, like have a couple options is great. Like
love it.
Coffee is a great first option, but like, or going on a walk or going someplace and we're like, hey, would you be down for coffee or like the coffee, or there's this new art exhibit over here. Like give her a few options so she can choose so that she doesn't feel like pigeonholed. But maybe a few like low-key stuff of like, oh, they're doing this new thing here. Like, let's go check it out. Please don't do a movie as the first date.
You do not get to know them.
I know dinner and a movie is like the staple go-to, but yeah, unless you're both like love movies and you've talked about how much you love
and you're going to go take them afterwards
you're going
to just dive into it.
Just don't do that. Just do something else.
Yeah, go for a walk. I love even the idea of doing something, like not just sitting there. Sometimes that can feel like a lot of pressure. So the walk is great because you can kind of just be walking and talking. It doesn't feel so like staring you in the eyes, you know?
So tell me what your dreams are.
Exactly.
Also not a great first date question. What kind of movies do you like as a first date question? Not like, what's your life's purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Like, grab a coffee and go for a walk, different stuff like that. Another thing that I was going to say is have it like a backup plan if she says no thank you.
That's a great
some simple point. Like, because sometimes you just freeze and you're like,
okay.
Or just awkward to be just going, hey, no problem. Like, I saw this about you and appreciated it. I'd love to, like, no problem. Hopefully I see you around. Just something chill.
Wish them well.
Yeah. Just like, cool, no problem. Keep it chill.
Yes. Don't go begging. Yeah.
Don't be begging or don't be rude afterwards. You're like, well, I didn't think your shoes were that nice anyways. You're like, okay, that says more about you than them. But
Right. I think when we feel
how does it feel for? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just thinking. I think sometimes when we feel that tendency to like want to be like almost abrasive back, it's probably because something inside is felt triggered, or I don't know. It's kind of been pushed. A button has been pushed, and so it's a great moment for us to just go, oh, let's pause. Let's take a second. Yeah. Why am I feeling so annoyed or frustrated that this person is saying no? Am I feeling rejected? Okay, great. Oh, thank you. Let's be so kind versus like, oh, now I'm being defensive, right? Yeah. Great point. Love it.
Yeah. One other thing, because I've heard from girls sometimes it's like a splash, like it
shock.
happens. Yeah, shock. Thank you.
Absolute shock.
You're like, what has happened? And so I've heard even at the end, if you know them or not, it's just to go in. I mean, unless you're like passing and leaving, just to go, hey, no, like, feel free to get back to me. Like, here's my number. Like, I'd love to get to know you. And if they're like, look shocked, they don't know what to do, just to go, you don't have to answer right now. Here's my number. If you'd love to, like, I'd love to hear from you if you're interested.
I love that little piece of advice.
It gives them a little like breathing room. And even that could allow them just to step back and go, okay, I feel safe. Yes, I am choosing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is great advice. I mean, just think you're like going about your day and all of a sudden, boom, this opportunity, and you're supposed to respond right there in the moment. And you have no idea. You're like, wait, I have no idea how I feel about this. I'm supposed to decide in this.
I was thinking about my grocery list.
Yeah, like in this 30-second interaction. Yeah. I love that piece of advice. Yeah. That is great.
Yeah, I've got that from another girl. They're like, it feels shocking. I'm like, okay, cool.
What do we do about that?
Can I add in, if you do know the person, just some practical language? And two things is, one, if you know the person and you're already friends, please do not disqualify them because you're already friends.
Yes.
Because sometimes girls are like, well, I already know, or guys, like, I already know. Like,
that they're not interested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give yourself an opportunity to be surprised. Like, give yourself permission to be surprised, to go, okay. Because I think guys and girls will show up differently to a romantic date or interest than they do to friendships. If we're just friendships hanging out, I won't be as intentional as, oh, this is something.
So true.
Like, there's another level of like manhood that comes up or comes out, is just to go,
1,000%. Yes. I feel like, okay, I have something to say to this, because same, like Elijah and I were just friends.
Yeah.
And I remember having a lot of questions because I was like, I only see this one side of Elijah, right? And I think that happens a lot. We see the public side of the person. We see the person that shows up to class or shows up to that meeting or shows up to the game night. And they are it's one side of that person that we ever see.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of questions like, well, can they be this way? Can they be that way? Can they be this way?
Yeah.
And I remember having those questions with Elijah. I was like, well, can he be chill? Like, he's such a goofball and high energy. I was like, can he be serious? Like, he's always making jokes. Like, had a lot of questions. Is he mature? Like, all these things. And I remember on that first date, I came home and I was like, I did not know that person existed.
All right.
Yeah, because you just don't know, because you only know them as friend.
Yes.
You haven't seen them in like pursuing, taking care of a girl in a romantic kind of way. Yeah. Until you have that opportunity. Yes. So don't count people off.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
If you are friends, some language, because I love like giving language, because I needed language, is just going, hey, I'd love to explore the possibility of being more than friends. Or I'd love to explore the possibility of this becoming something romantic.
Yeah.
That way you're not going, I want to date you and marry you, but you're going, hey, we seem to be great friends. Here's the stuff I appreciate about you and like about you. Would you be open to exploring something more than friends?
Yeah.
And it's low key, like, the next step. And then again, give them permission to go, this may be kind of a shock because we've been friends. Totally. And I may be in the friend zone in your head. So take some time, get back to me. We'll be around.
That's great. I love that piece of advice. Yeah, that's great. Yes. A few things I would look for on the first date. This is from a girl's perspective, and I think it should and would be different for the guy in some sense. I think as a girl, there's a few things you're looking for.
Hygiene.
Yeah, hygiene. Oh, that's some practicals. I mean, like, can he clean up? I mean, hello. Totally. But I think you're looking for kind of throughout the whole process, does he make me feel safe and do I feel respected? Because I think sometimes we can be led down this dark hole, and we're like, wait, where are we at? What is happening? What's going on? And so I think from the get-go, did he make me feel like I had an option to say yes or no? Did it feel forceful?
Yeah.
When he picked me up from the date, I loved what you even said about giving them options so they don't feel like trapped in a hole, like you have to say yes to this one experience with me.
Yeah.
But maybe you would enjoy this experience, and maybe you hate ice skating and we should never go ice skating, but maybe you love bowling. Like that, obviously, I don't know about those kind of dates, but like kind of giving them options. I love that idea of, oh, look, I'm inviting you into this journey. I'm not forcing anything upon you.
Yeah.
I think that as a girl that feels like, oh, I'm being valued and respected, but he also has a plan. He's not just like, think it might be a good time. It's like, no, I have a plan because your time is valuable. And so I want to show you that this is how I want to benefit your time, to add to your time, to really show you that I value you, that I'm interested in you. And I think even just on the process of the date, there's a few things you're looking for beyond like, okay, he's all these things, but like kind of you mentioned this, like, do we get along well? Is he funny? Like, can he laugh at my jokes? Like kind of the really basic things. Like, is there an initial, like, can he carry on a conversation? Do we have is there an ease to the conversation? Like, can the conversation keep going? Or am I just like so thankful this date is over and I'm exhausted because I've been having to like dig for questions?
I literally carried the conversation and I'm exhausted.
Yeah. And he hasn't asked me a thing about myself. Like that's those kind of things you're looking for. But one thing I always, and my mom would always say this to me growing up. It's like her one piece of dating advice that I remember, because we're talking about like who taught me how to date. Yeah. I don't know. But she would always tell me, she was like, does he say thank you for your time? And you as well should say thank you.
That's a great one.
Yeah, because it is there. That's how kind this person, regardless of how the date goes, they did take time out of their day. They expressed that they thought you were worth it, like you're worth their time.
Yeah.
And so thank them for their time.
Yeah.
Like be kind to them. Like what a risk, right?
That's so good.
It takes courage for a guy to come up to you and ask you out. Like be kind to him. And so I think that kind of goes both ways. Like is he acknowledging that you've also given some time for him as well? So his kindness.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have kindness.
Kindness. It's
right?
so simple, but so key.
Right. I feel like that should be like a red flag if it's not there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, I'm ready to marry him because of this. And I'm like, dude, if he or she like is not able to appreciate you and your time.
Right.
I'm like, well.
And a few indicators even of kindness on a date is like, how is he treating the waiter? Like, how is he treating the people around him?
How often is he checking his phone?
Right. Is he present?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. That's great.
That's great. So how to wrap up here a little bit.
I know we've rambled a bit on this one, right? We had a lot to share with y'all.
Yeah. It's so good. Okay. So ending the date here.
Yes.
Here's a little trick that I do.
Yes.
Well, it did. I don't do it anymore. But at the end, like towards the end of the date, I would go to the bathroom. Partly because I drank a lot of coffee. No.
Yeah.
But I would go that way. It's just me and my feelings by myself. I'm not trying to like engage in the conversation, listen, think about the next question, figure out where we are. What am I feeling? What is she feeling? What's that guy feeling?
There's a lot to coordinate.
There's a lot happening. So I go to the bathroom and just kind of breathe for a second and go, okay, what am I thinking? What am I feeling?
Yeah.
Like, this was really fun. Like, I want to do this again. Like, I want to keep doing this. Or maybe it wasn't the best, but there's the potential for it to go better. Because there's always nerves, right? On the first date, you're like, I realized that I buffed a couple of questions I should have said differently or better, or, you know. So I was like, oh, yeah, I think that was fun. I would do it again. I'm like, okay, great. I know that. Or, yeah, that was pretty exhausting. We don't really have anything in common.
Right.
There's some great things about her because she's made in the image of God, but
I cannot.
I just,
right.
I think someone else would be better suited, you know?
Totally.
And so you know right out of the gate that's happening. And sometimes you're like, I don't really know. And so, but I just like to go to the bathroom just to reassess. This is what I'm feeling.
That's a great little practical tip.
So when I go back, I've been to a lot of Starbucks bathrooms. Just going, okay, Jesus, what am I feeling right now?
Totally.
But that way, as you like end the time together, you know, you're like, hey, thanks so much for, no matter what you're going, but just some sample languages. Hey, thanks so much for meeting me today. Like, I really appreciated you coming in. Like, I enjoy getting to know you a bit better. Like, hopefully I'll see, like, maybe I'll see you around. It's just a nice, like, okay.
There's no promise at the end of it.
Yeah, there's no promise. Don't give don't.
No.
I'm shocked to say this sometimes, but don't be like, all right, I'll call you. And then it's like, no plans.
Never do.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it was really nice to get to meet you. Hopefully I'll see you around, or like, enjoy that movie, something you can refer to.
Yeah.
Or to go, maybe in the moment you go, yeah, I really enjoy this. I'd love to do it again sometime. Like if you're open to that. And then also when you're in the bathroom, you can also plan a couple backup activities.
Yeah.
Or if you could just say like, I really enjoyed this. I'd love to do it again sometime. If you're open to it, I'll come up with some things.
Yeah.
Like just communicating some, like you said earlier, I'm a little nervous right now of going, hey, nothing's in my head right now, but I'll come up with something. And then if you're open to it, something like that. Or just to go, you're like, hey, I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Thanks. And no promise later. And then later you can figure out what you're feeling and to go, no, I am interested.
Totally.
You can follow up with a text to go, hey, I really enjoyed today. Would you be open to doing bowling next week?
Yes.
Or thanks so much for your time. Like, I loved your funny story about your dog.
Yeah.
There's just nice ways that you can appreciate. I actually got that one from I'm stealing your thunder. I got it from your YouTube video of like the follow-up text of just going, hey, thanks so much. It was just kindness. I'm like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just a thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it kind of, because after a date, you're wondering like, what did they think? Are we on the same page? Da, da, da. Just to put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I love that piece of advice.
Cool.
Awesome.
Any final thoughts?
Man, I feel like we covered all the bases. Well, maybe not all the bases, but we got at least.
But that's why we have Date Well.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I love Date Well because we went after heart stuff, head stuff, practicals. It's very
It's in depth.
Yeah, it's in depth because I'm like, we want people, healthy singles, make healthy relationships, make healthy families, make healthy cultures, which transform the world.
Yes.
And even if none of that happens, you as an individual still are worth being like healthy and whole.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more and check out all of our awesome content, be sure to head to our website at moralrevolution.com and our socials, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. But before you leave, don't forget to like, review, subscribe, all of the things. We want you guys to come back and join us. We enjoyed having you. See you next time.